I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. It's a dull Wednesday morning, the kind where the sky is a sheet of unending gray, and the sun is just a rumor. I sit across from Jasmine at our kitchen table, the air thick with the silence of unsaid words. The only sound is the soft tap of rain against the window, a fitting soundtrack to the dissonance in my heart. Jasmine's voice breaks through, hesitant yet deliberate. "Mark, I'm pregnant," she announces, avoiding my gaze. Her fingers nervously toy with the edge of her coffee mug, her knuckles white. I pause, the weight of her words sinking in. We hadn't planned for a child, not now, not in the chaos of our lives. Confusion wars with suspicion in my mind. We weren't planning this, Jasmine. How did this happen? I ask, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She looks up, her eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment before darting away. I know. But we can figure this out, right? There's a plea in her voice, a hint of desperation. Memories of a similar morning 6 months ago flicker in my mind. It had been the same uneasy confession, the same solution. I had given her money for an abortion then. And now, here we are again. It's strange, isn't it? Twice in such a short time. I probe, watching her closely. Jasmine bites her lip, nodding. It is. I was careful, I swear. It just happened. I hand her the money, the bills crisp and uncaring. Take care of it, I say, my voice void of emotion. She takes it, her touch tentative, and thanks me with a whisper. But when it happens a third time, suspicion claws at my insides, refusing to be ignored. I decide to follow her. Today, she's supposedly on her way to the clinic. I trail her from a distance, my heart pounding with each step she takes away from the path she should be on. Instead of heading to the clinic, Jasmine meets a man at the corner of a bustling street. I recognize him, the faint curl of his lips, the confident tilt of his head. He's no stranger. They exchange a brief conversation, laughter floating in the air, before he hands her a small envelope. My stomach churns as they walk, not to a clinic, but to a nearby hotel. The truth hits me like a punch to the gut. She had never been pregnant. All those confessions, all those trips to the clinic, had been lies. Lies to fund her deceit, her betrayal. I confront her later that day, the evidence burning a hole in my pocket. "Where were you today, Jasmine?" I ask, the calm in my voice belying the storm within. She hesitates, her eyes flickering with guilt. "I went to the clinic," she lies, her voice a mere whisper. I throw the envelope on the table, her secret now laid bare. "Then explain this," I demand, my voice hard as stone. Her facade crumbles, tears spilling over. "I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But apologies can't unwrite the betrayal. I had trusted her, loved her, and she had used me. My mind races with plans of revenge, of breaking her as she had broken me. The divorce papers would be just the beginning. As I walk away, the finality of our parting echoes in the hollows of my broken heart. Jasmine had made her choice, and now, so had I. The intrigue of what would come next lingered in the air, a promise of more revelations and retribution. The morning after the confrontation, the house feels larger, emptier. The silence that greets me is different, no longer just a lack of sound, but a void filled with the residue of betrayal. As I sit at the same kitchen table where Jasmine dropped her bombshells, my mind races with possibilities, each more vindictive than the last. I reach for my phone, dialing a number I never thought I'd need. "Ray, it's Mark. I need your help with something personal," I say as soon as he picks up. Ray's voice is cautious, tinged with concern. "Sure, Mark. What's going on?" I lean closer to the phone, my voice a low whisper. "I found out Jasmine has been cheating on me. I want to make sure she regrets lying to me." There's a pause, a breath held and then released. I get it. What do you have in mind? I'm thinking a little exposure might do the trick. She prides herself on her reputation. Let's see how she likes it when everyone knows what she's really been up to, I suggest, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Ray agrees to help, his tone serious. Okay, I'll see what I can dig up and spread the word discreetly. You sure about this, though? There's no going back. I nod to myself, resolute. I'm sure. The day feels endless, each tick of the clock echoing in the empty spaces Jasmine left behind. By evening, Ray texts me, "It's done. Check the local forum and her social media." I log in, and the results are immediate. Comments flood her posts, the community reacting to the revelations of her deceit. Jasmine's phone buzzes incessantly on the counter, notifications lighting up the screen like fireworks. She walks into the kitchen, her eyes wide with panic. "Mark, what did you do?" she asks, her voice shaky as she holds up her phone, displaying a particularly venomous comment. I shrug, feigning indifference. "Just letting the truth come out," I reply coldly. "Why would you do this? This is private." Her face crumples, the impact of her public shaming hitting her hard. "Was it private when you took money from me to give to him? Was it private when you lied to my face, again and again?" I shoot back, my anger flaring. She tries to argue, her words tumbling out in a frantic mess, but I hold up a hand to stop her. "Save it, Jasmine. I'm done listening." Later that night, Ray calls. "Mark, this is just the start. What's the next step in your plan?" His voice is eager, almost excited by the drama unfolding. I pause, my mind going to darker places. Let's make sure she can't just walk away from this. Maybe a few calls to her workplace would be interesting. Her boss might want to know who he's really employed. "Consider it done," Ray responds, and I can almost hear the smile in his voice. As I hang up, I realize the depths of my own transformation. The hurt had morphed into something unrecognizable, driving me to dismantle the life of the person I once loved most. But there's no satisfaction in it, only the hollow victory of revenge. The next morning dawns bleak and overcast, mirroring the turmoil within me as I prepare for the next phase of my plan. The house feels colder, emptier, now stripped of the pretenses that once filled it. I sip my coffee, the bitter taste a perfect match for my mood. My phone buzzes, a message from Ray confirming that the calls to Jasmine's workplace have been made. "It's done." Waiting to see how they react, the text reads. My stomach knots with anticipation and a twinge of regret, but I push it aside. An hour later, Jasmine storms into the house, her face flushed with anger and humiliation. "Mark, they suspended me." Pending an investigation, she yells the moment she sees me. Her eyes are wild, her usual poise shattered. I look up from my laptop, feigning surprise. "Really? That's unfortunate," I reply dryly, my voice devoid of sympathy. "Unfortunate? This is my career, Mark. How could you?" Her voice cracks, the strain of the past days evident in her shaking hands. I stand, closing the laptop with a soft click. "How could I? How could you, Jasmine? You played me for a fool, lied to me, stole from me. This is just the consequence of your actions." She steps back as if slapped, her face contorting with a mix of anger and sorrow. "I made a mistake, yes. But you're ruining my life over it." "A mistake?" "No, Jasmine, a mistake is something small, insignificant. This was betrayal," I snap, my words sharp and cold. Our standoff is interrupted by the ring of the doorbell. Jasmine wipes her eyes, a nervous flicker crossing her face. I stride past her to answer the door. Standing there is a man in a suit, his expression grim. "Mr. Mark Benson?" he asks, his voice formal. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" "I'm here regarding Ms. Jasmine Benson. I'm her attorney." We believe that the accusations and actions against her constitute harassment and defamation. We are prepared to take legal action unless these cease immediately. The revelation hits me harder than expected. The game had changed. This was no longer a mere exchange of personal grievances but a legal battle. Tell your client that she brought this upon herself. If she wants a war, she'll get one, I retort, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The attorney notes my response, his eyes narrowing slightly. Very well, Mr. Benson. Expect to hear from us soon. With that, he turns and leaves. I close the door slowly, leaning against it. The weight of my actions begins to press down on me. What had started as a quest for retribution was spiraling into something far larger and more destructive than I had envisioned. Jasmine is still standing in the hallway, her posture defeated. Is this what you want, Mark? To drag this through the courts? To air our dirty laundry for all to see? I meet her gaze, the fire of anger dimming in my eyes. I don't know anymore, Jasmine. But I can't just let you get away with what you did. She nods slowly, her eyes filled with tears. I never wanted any of this, she whispers. As she walks away, the magnitude of our mutual destruction settles around me like a shroud. The legal threats loom large, promising not just the ruin of her reputation, but potentially mine as well. The depth of our entanglement, driven by my desire for vengeance, becomes painfully clear. As the days bleed into each other, the legal threats hang over us like a storm cloud ready to burst. Our home becomes a battlefield, silent and tense, with every encounter loaded like a gun. Despite the looming lawsuit, a plan forms in my mind, a final move to end this chess game once and for all. I call Ray for one last favor. I need something big, something that can't be ignored or explained away, I tell him over the phone. Ray's voice is low, cautious. Are you sure about this, Mark? This sounds final. It is, I confirm, my voice resolute. It's the only way to make sure she doesn't just walk away from this. Late one evening, as the shadows grow long and the world quiets, I set my plan in motion. I've arranged for a parcel to be delivered to Jasmine's office, the contents of which are incriminating enough to not only ensure her immediate dismissal but also her arrest. The next morning, I watch from across the street as Jasmine arrives at her office. She walks in, unsuspecting, her stride confident. It's the last time I see her like this. Within hours, the police arrive. I watch as they escort her out in handcuffs, her face a mask of shock and despair. The parcel had contained falsified evidence of embezzlement, a crime taken very seriously in her line of work. Jasmine tries to look at me through the crowd, her eyes searching for an ally, but I turn away, the finality of my actions settling in. I've destroyed her, but at what cost? Back at home, the silence is deafening. I sit in the dark, the weight of my ruthlessness heavy on my shoulders. I've won, but the victory is hollow, poisoned by the venom of my own actions. The doorbell rings, a sharp echo in the quiet house. I open the door to find a man I don't recognize, a private investigator hired by Jasmine's lawyer. He doesn't waste time, his words cutting through the air like a knife. Mr. Benson, we know what you did. The evidence you planted was traced back to you. You will be charged with fraud and obstruction of justice. The room spins as I realize the extent of my miscalculation. In my quest for vengeance, I had become the villain of the story. Jasmine didn't cheat on you, the investigator continues, his gaze steady and accusing. The man she met, the money, it was all for her brother, struggling with debts and threatening suicide. She was helping him, not betraying you. The revelation hits like a physical blow. The depth of my misunderstanding, the tragedy of my misdirected hate, unfolds before me in its brutal reality. I didn't know, I stammer, my voice barely a whisper. Didn't care to know, you mean, he replies coldly. You'll have plenty of time to think about that. As he leaves, the finality of my destruction becomes apparent. Not just Jasmine's life ruined, but mine as well. The hatred of betrayal, it turns out, was directed at the wrong person. The chapter closes with me alone, the darkness around me a mere shadow of the one within. Jasmine and I are apart forever, not because of her betrayal, but mine. The hero of the story, now the architect of his own demise, faces a future filled with regret and retribution, but this time, directed inward. The intrigue of the plot, the deception and misunderstanding, concludes with a twist that leaves the true nature of betrayal painfully clear.